Hello, everybody, and welcome to another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show. I, of course, am Mr. Warren Hayes, and this is the show in which we talk about professional wrestling for a while, right here, youtube.com/Mr. Warren Hayes, or on your favorite podcast application. Thank you, everyone, for being here. I hope you're having a lovely week so far. I hope things are going well, and I hope I can come sprinkle a little joy, a little magic, a little surprise. I don't know, through something, right? So, as long as I sprinkle something positive, that's all I really want to do, honestly. But that's what we're going to be attempting. That's what we're going to be attempting to be doing. That's a lot of words tonight here on the show. By the way, if you enjoy all of this, well, leave a like here on YouTube, or a 5-star review on Apple Podcast, or a 5-star rating on Spotify. Those things really do help out tremendously. If you want to talk pro wrestling, if you want to jump in and join some nice, cool folks who just enjoy talking pro wrestling in the way that I do, the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord is the place for you. The link is in the description, or you can also follow me on Blue Sky. It's really the only social that I use actively. MrWarrenHayes.show is what you want to look for over there on Blue Sky. Other than that, tonight, if we get down to brass tacks, we are going to be spending a lot of time talking about a couple of people whose contracts are not going to be renewed. That it was, reported, confirmed, specifically Mariah May and R-Truth. And this will also segue into, the R-Truth thing is going also to segue into why WWE fans just can't seem to blame Triple H for any stuff happening. Anyway, we're going to examine all that. We're going to talk about all of that. We're going to try and make sense of it all. Plus, Dean 2, the action/Ring of Honor show that happened a few days ago. I got a review for you. It's ready to go. It's all up there. So that's the show. That's what we got for you this week. So hopefully you enjoyed. Thank you very much for being here. Let's just get right to it. You can't just decide for yourself and decide, we have this date open here and clear, and we have a great deal on this venue, and we're gonna book it for Great American Bash. No, you got to see what AEW is doing, and then you have to book something on the same day at the exact same time to counter program whatever AEW has going on, because otherwise otherwise what is NXT for? Basically, it's getting kind of sad at this point. Look, to be very clear, I know this is nothing new, okay? WWE has done this for decades to multiple promotions, to varying degrees of severity, right? So I completely get it. In this circumstance here, I don't recall there being anything so blatant and just outright that has happened so often in such a short period of time as what WWE has been doing since AEW announced the Arena Mexico show. It's just been kind of crazy, right? If you don't remember what happened with the Arena Mexico show, well, AEW announces that they're going to have a show in Arena Mexico, the home of CMLL. And then a couple of days later after that, WWE announces that they're going to do a Worlds Collide. No, that they're going to do not even the Worlds. They're still doing the Worlds Collide show on June 7th, but there's also going to be a Triple Mania show that is going to be held just on the, I believe, the Sunday or the Saturday before the Arena Mexico show. So it's not exactly it's not exactly counter programming, but going into that region to take away some attention and whatnot. Like, this is what they're doing. I think it's nonetheless very clear that the intent is nonetheless to pull out a Triple Mania show out of their ass, just out of nowhere, to sort of steal some thunder. Yes, absolutely. That's absolutely what's going on here with the Triple Mania purchase, right? Then at Saturday night's main event last weekend, WWE announced that they were going to have the Great American Bash show that was going to show up. Was going to be held, soon. They didn't announce a date when they announced it at the Saturday night's main event show. And I went into the Mr. Warren Hayes Show Discord, and there is tangible proof right there. You can go in the WWE channel, I believe. And I said specifically, the WWE announced the Great American Bash, announced an NXT show, Great American Bash. And I would not be surprised if they run that in the afternoon on the day of All In, while All In is on, because All In starts at 3 Eastern, 2 Central, right? I was like, do you want to bet that that's what they're going to do? And guess what they did? Guess what they fucking did? Great American Bash will be taking place in Atlanta on Saturday, July 12th. Press release issued by WWE confirms that it will be taking place in the afternoon, meaning the show should have at least some overlap with AEW All In Texas. The AEW pay-per-view has a start time of 3 p.m. Eastern. Great American Bash's exact start time was not mentioned in WWE's press release. Great American Bash is one of 3 WWE shows being held in Atlanta that weekend as part of a takeover of the city. Saturday night's main event will take place at State Farm Arena on July 12th, with State Farm Arena then hosting WWE's All-Women's Evolution PLE on July 13th. And there's combo tickets and all this stuff. Boy, they're really swinging hard. And you're going to tell me that this is the only weekend that they could put all of this together? Just a pure coincidence? There's no coincidence. There's no coincidence. There is no shot at all that this is a coincidence. And you know why it's not a coincidence? Because there's a report that was put out today by WrestleVotes. Now, we all know here on the channel, we do not trust Joey Votes. We don't think, we don't always, we have mocked his lack of accuracy in the past, but it seems like recently, he's working very tight with WWE, like extremely tight. And he says that he's reporting that an episode of NXT TV will emanate from the former ECW arena on Tuesday, August 19, 8 days before the residency that AEW announced, at the most 10 days ago, maybe even just a week ago, a couple of days ago. It begins on Wednesday, August 27 through September 11. Again, these are not coincidences, folks. These are not coincidences. I don't know why. This is all extremely purposeful. WWE knows exactly what it's doing here. 100%. And you have to think about this counter programming. Outside of the bubble of just you have to think of this outside of the bubble. Well, Atlanta and Texas, two different, the two different states, it's not going to affect ticket sales. It's not even a question of ticket sales anymore. It's not even a question of ticket sales might come into effect for the NXT show, but I don't know. I don't necessarily think it is. The idea here is to take attention away. They want to take attention away. That's why they ran, that's why they run, fucking Battleground, the NXT show at the same time as Double or Nothing. That's why it's to take attention away from from AEW so that the discourse online is not entirely about AEW. They'll tell you, or Triple H will tell you, that online fans, they're annoying and whatnot, and, they don't like them. But when it comes down to it, they will fight tooth and nail to get to be able to say the most social event since the Super Bowl or whatever the fuck, right? Which is a terrible thing, a stupid metric, the most social. Who gives a fuck? Going around touting their numbers. WWE has more subscribers across all its platforms than the NBA, the NFL, the NHL, and so on. And you're like, oh my God. And that's what they want. They don't want the buzz to go to anyone else but them. So it's not even a question of moving on to that. It's not even a question of them trying to impact sales in another market. It's more like, well, we did it first, or we're still around, we're doing things. Trick Williams defeating Joe Hendry. That took up a lot of conversation on Sunday night. That's what these things are for. WWE is all about the virality. It's always been about moments, but I think we can push this a little further and talk about viral moments. That's what we can do here. We can start talking about viral moments more so than just WrestleMania moments and all this shit. They want stuff to be able to be shared in chunks, bite size, on Twitter, on TikTok, and so on and so forth, and it's affected the product in that way. When you start realizing that WWE is a company that is based on creating virality, well, you can see how it has ill-affected the product overall, right? So we're not done. So, I'm pointing this out, and I can't help but find it's funny because of how much effort they're putting into this, And then, there's people saying, oh, I feel bad for the NXT talent. Why? Why do you feel bad for the NXT talent? Oh, because they're getting thrown around right and left. They're getting paid. They'll go wherever their boss tells them to go, and they'll do their thing. Why are we feeling bad for them? Why are we feeling bad for them? There's no one to feel bad for here. I don't even feel all that bad for AEW. I just think it's, I think it's tremendous. Because this is the kind of shit that we've been saying for years that WWE does. And a lot of people who weren't around in the day when they were doing this kind of shit, oh, it's a different company, it's a new way of doing things, and they're back to doing the exact same things. And they're doing this, mark my words, they're doing this because they perceive AEW as competition. We have to abandon this idea that WWE feels that AEW is not competition. Those days are behind us. They're gone. And there's a specific moment in time where everything changed in WWE's perception of AEW, where maybe at a time they were laughing it off and scoffing and going, these people are not competition, legitimately. But there is one moment in time that changed WWE's perception in regards to whether or not AEW was competitive or not. And that is the day that AEW signed its new deal with Warner Brothers. That is the precise moment in time. From that point on, WWE probably looked at everything and like, okay, well, these guys are the real deal. They're serious. It's not another TNA. It's not another fly-by-night promotion. These guys are for real. These guys have the power to disrupt all the models that we've been setting up for years. Because it's not even a question. It's not even a question of gates or ratings all that much. It's not even that merchandise sales. WWE is $1 billion company. Their benefactors are major media conglomerations and the crown prince of Saudi Arabia. That everything else is just like gravy. They don't give a fuck. The problem that WWE has with AEW is how it affects its operations. Because of the presence of AEW, WWE cannot pay the wrestlers. They can't go into a model like UFC has, where UFC just quite simply, shortchanges, gouges its fighters. Okay, they can't go down that model because unlike with UFC, there is another company who can dump out oodles amounts of money to sign big time wrestlers and give them big time contracts. So what does that do? It forces WWE to raise their salary floor if they want to retain their talent. So that straight out the gate is an annoyance. It's also an annoyance for them when it's going to be time to renegotiate. Media deals. Because if NXT, completely out of control here, Warren. If AEW is available as a wrestling product, 52 weeks a year, programming, whatever, like 5 hours of programming a week, then stuff for your streaming service and all that, all the benefits that AEW has, which are the same benefits as WWE. What if AEW comes to your network with the same types of promises, but costs less? Then that becomes a problem for WWE's renegotiations, because then it gives the networks leverage where they're like, well, your competition does this. And I hear and I agree with the strategy that people say, well, WWE keep pumping out content. They create all of these programmings, and it's to saturate the market, right? Right? It's to saturate the market, to create, Evolve, and then to create LFG, Legends and Future Geeks, and then all of the other ancillary programming, the stuff that they do on A&E, and then now the podcasts. Now you have the Stephanie McMahon podcast. You have the Cody Rhodes Let's Drink Some Vodka podcast, and then they flood the market with all of this content. And people say that's a way to drown out AEW. Maybe. But I think it's more of a situation where it's like WWE wants to show that it can create oodles amount of content in a flash, because we have access to all of this talent, and we can create whatever you want. We even have a title for social media. If your social media network wants to benefit from the speed title, we can create that for you too. We can create content exclusively for your video platform if you want it. Because then they realize that the only way they can continue to have a true heads up on AEW is to show that they can create more content than AEW. And then they can charge more money for it. That's the only way. It's the only way. And that's their main issue with AEW. That is the principal problem that they have. Is that because otherwise they'd leave TNA, they left TNA all of these years do its own little thing, because they never saw them as a threat. They've left MLW go and do its own little thing after all, never cared. MLW, they don't give a shit. AEW, that's a problem. That's a problem for them, because AEW is playing in their territory, and it has the potential to affect its bottom line. And we talked about this, or I talked about it on the podcast. TKO, sharks. These people are sharks, and their loyalty is to money. They will shortchange whatever needs to be shortchanged to ensure that their bottom dollar keeps growing and keeps getting bigger. They don't give a shit. So, create all the content as cheaply as possible, sell it for the biggest price. It's just as simple as that. But if there's another guy in the same space providing the same type of service, it's like, whoa, wait a second. So that's why they talk about, we're a show about professional wrestling, or a movie like professional wrestling, about professional wrestling. We're not professional wrestling, because they want to that's how they feel they can create value, because it's a show, it's an entertainment product, it's a universe, So all of these moves here is just to make sure that their profile stays high, first and foremost. And AEW's gets shortchanged in these situations. Because I'm starting to feel, and I don't have the data, okay, but it's my gut that's talking. And folks, I trust my gut. I would think that over the years, my gut has shown that it can be trusted by you as well. But my gut says that less and less pro wrestling fans are crossing over with WWE today. I'm not talking about an exodus. I'm not talking about people disappearing. But I think there was a time in very recent memory where if you had a show on a Saturday night, a pay-per-view on a Saturday night, you would clearly see that people would en masse choose to go watch whatever was on Peacock as opposed to watching Collision. So you couldn't really say there's AEW fans and there's WWE fans, because on nights where there was a WWE pay-per-view, Collision would take a hit in the ratings. It still does, but not as bad. And I'm starting to feel like the ticket buying public is regaining confidence in regards to AEW's programming, weekly TV programming, and they're starting to buy more and more tickets. I talk about it practically every week with the Dynamite review, and we can see that the arrows for live attendance on the weekly shows, on the weekly tapings for Dynamite, are pointing upward. We're not talking about a sudden spike, and we're not suddenly returning to basketball arenas, but you can see that the curve is going upward. The arrows are pointing up. The cumulative yearly average so far keeps rising for attendance. So I don't think that NXT going to the 2300 arena 2 weeks before the residency, AEW's residency, is going to deter people from not buying tickets for the residency. From what I understand, the combos for the residency are ridiculously cheap. Like if you buy the combo for all of the shows, like it's an incredible deal. So I don't think that's why they're doing it. They're doing it to take attention away, to detract attention. That's all they're doing. And yes, they're using NXT as fodder in the situation. They are absolutely 100% using NXT as fodder to get this over. I would like to see them this is what I'd like. Instead of using NXT, if you're listening, Paul Levesque, have the balls to do it with one of your main shows. Have the balls to do it with Raw. Have the balls to do it with SmackDown. Instead of your third brand, your minor leagues. Have the balls to do it with one of the main brands. This is the utmost sign that AEW is doing well and is successful. Because if AEW was down in the dirt, was nosediving, was dying, like all of the grifters tell us, or like all of the weirdos on Reddit seem to believe, if AEW truly was in a downward spiral, was not successful, WWE would not give a fuck. They haven't given a fuck for TNA, to try and fuck with TNA in all of its existence. Same with MLW, because they never posed, because WWE never saw them as big enough, successful enough to be a problem. If AEW was in that position, if AEW was dying, WWE would continue to just ignore them, but they're not. And they are coming hard. Like, this is actually preposterous. It's kind of sad. I don't have a problem with there being a competition. Mind you, I don't have a problem with this being a competition. This is the kind of stuff that I expect. But this often, in such a short amount of time, it's kind of sad. It's kind of pathetic. And it's interesting because, you know, again, this is something that I've talked about on the reviews over the past couple of months. AEW doesn't ever mention WWE anymore. You know, there was a time in AEW where it felt like everyone wanted to go to AEW, to WWE, right? You remember that? Like MJF, you know, saying that, oh, I've got Bruce Pritchard's number on speed dial. What was it? The battle of 2024. What was it? Anyway, you know, like his contract renegotiation, and Ricky Starks was dropping hints. Everyone was dropping hints about wanting to go to WWE. And it'd come up once in a while and they'd crack wise about it. And for months, haven't even mentioned. There hasn't been any mentions. WWE on TV, just doing our job. And look at that. Product is better. Feels focused. Feels like it has a real direction. No more of this bullshit on TV anymore. There's no more of this bullshit on TV. What are they worried about? What are they afraid about? Billion-dollar company. They're bankrolled by the fucking crown prince of Saudi Arabia. What are they afraid of? What could they possibly be afraid of? So there's a lot of people recently who have been announcing that they are done with their respective wrestling promotions. Departures. Do not call them releases. I don't think anyone of the few people that that we're going to be talking about. Many of these people are not. Most of these people are not being released. Their contracts are just simply going to be run out, not going to be renewed. So we, just want to make sure that the terminology is okay on that point. But there's a couple of them, and look, I've got thoughts on everyone. No surprise. So why don't we go right ahead and start with the first? I guess it's going to be semi like in chronological order, because I think the first one that we heard came from PW Insider. On the 30th, May 30th, they wrote a report just outright saying Mariah May gone from AEW. It's from Mike Johnson, of course, who wrote the following. Mariah May was removed from the AEW website this afternoon, which usually means someone has departed the company and is free and clear to go elsewhere. We can confirm that we've heard from WWE sources over the last week that she's expected to start there in the near future. I believe Sean Ross Sapp from Fightful confirmed that report that everyone was kind of expecting. I don't think it comes to a shock to anyone at this point, since rumors were rampant a couple of weeks ago at the idea that a couple of weeks ago, even over a month, right? That Mariah May was going to be heading out to join WWE. My position in this thing has been in this situation has been the same. I haven't budged. It's the exact same situation. I, unlike many other people, do not think that Mariah May has done everything she needed to do in AEW. I think there was plenty for her to still do. I think there's a lot of feuds, a lot of matches, a lot of situations that she could have that were still new to her. She could have wrestled more people and stay in the mix and have some interesting, like, I don't think it didn't feel to me that Mariah May had exhausted everything that was at her disposal in AEW, right? But on the flip side, I'm neither here saying that oh, they should have hung on to her. What a fumble, Tony. None of that. I'm absolutely not doing that. I do think that I do think that if she wanted to go, and if she wants to be elsewhere, and if she wants to, achieve her lifelong dream of being in World Wrestling Entertainment, well, all the more power to her. That was absolutely fine by me. It was absolutely fine by me. Hey, look, maybe I should have prefaced this whole conversation before starting in by saying that, none of these departures to me feel or seem like this great, this grand departure, this grand disaster is what I wanted to say. Just mobility in pro wrestling is good. It's good for everyone. It's good for wrestlers and it's good for promotions. It just is. Everyone stays fresh. New things happening. Mariah May goes somewhere else and she's going to do something else with another type of character and with other people, and that's good. It's going to freshen up her career, and that's good for her. At least that's, the normal way of thinking. It's the hope, right? Meanwhile, in AEW, well, they're going to move on and someone's going to take her spot because nature abhors a void. And especially in pro wrestling, there's a spot that opens up, there's going to be someone there to take it. So, it's not a huge vacuum. It's not as if it's not as if, let's say, Tony Storm decided to hit the bricks, where I think that would be a much more substantial loss. Mariah did exactly what she had to do, and she did it well, and she closed everything up. She put over someone on her way out, helped elevate a star who stays within the promotion, look, it's good. It's for mobility and for everyone on this list. It's good for everyone. I have no issues with any of these, with any of this. I don't have an attachment. I don't sit there going, oh, isn't this a shame? Oh, these people losing their jobs. I'm like, nah. It's like, here's the funny thing here sometimes, that happens is when it comes to people having their contracts not renewed, right? Yes, it sucks, but it's also fine. It sucks, but it's also okay. These people know what they're getting into when they get into pro wrestling, right? And sure, it can suck huge matzo balls for wrestlers whose dream was to work in WWE, and then suddenly WWE says, well, I am no longer interested in your exclusive company. Well, yeah, that's a little hit to the ego. It sucks because maybe this was your dream. You feel like you weren't properly used or whatever, Excuse me. So I can understand that, you probably feel a little upset and there's something to mourn. There's loss. I can understand. But ultimately speaking, and especially ultimately speaking, this is how the cookie crumbles. This is how it goes. And it's been like this for forever. And until wrestlers decide to unionize, this is going to be the way it's going to happen. This is how it's going to go until they decide to band together. Where was I going with this? I feel like I got sidetracked. Talking about Mariah and people getting upset. Okay, all right. Okay. So I myself, and I don't consider myself to be above these people. I'm just taking enough distance to be able to provide some analysis and sort of give some thoughts. So I can look at the situation and go, oh, well, this is what's happening here, and this is what's best or worst or whatnot. Because here's the other thing is that I have no I have no pony in this race. I don't work for any of these companies. I don't know these people either. So, I can feel naturally bad, empathy as a normal human can. But, if you're playing a certain game and the rules of the game make it so that it, unfortunately doesn't quite work in your favor, well, all I can do is shrug until someone decides to change the rules. But that's a whole other conversation. So, circling back to Mariah, I feel that there may have been more to extract out of her in AEW. I don't believe like she had hit a wall and that there was nothing else she could do. I myself don't necessarily think her run at the top was particularly interesting. I don't think she had really, I don't think she was a particularly compelling heel champion. There's a lot of her work that was very mid at the same time. I would have liked to seen her back on the mid card doing mid card things with all the other stars of AEW women's roster, right? Dig into that little rivalry she had with Willow more, right? Why not have a match with Mercedes? All that kind of stuff. It's all things that I think would have been interesting to see, but she's going to live her dream. She's going to leave she's leaving to go to WWE, and all the more power to her. Good for her. If that's what she wants, well, if that's what she wants, that's what she'll get. The thing, and the thing that empowers my reasoning the most is that I can't think of a better way for a wrestler to exit a territory while the territory continues reaping the benefits from that wrestler. You could not have made this any more pitch perfect, where Mariah May, is set up, does her thing to elevate one person and to turn that person into a bona fide superstar. Look, Toni Storm was a star before all of this started, but at the end of the Hollywood ending spiel thing, she became a superstar. She became not just the face of the women's division, but a face of the goddamn company, And that is through the work of, that is absolutely through the work of Toni Storm and Mariah May working together, right? So Mariah had her hand in that. And the way it finished, universal acclaim, everyone's like, what a perfect cap to this feud, wrapping it up with the bow. And now she's out. She couldn't have asked for a better exit from any company. She could not have asked for a better exit from anyone. She wasn't, Tony Khan kept her off TV for the past 3 months, and knowing that she was leaving. Sure, yeah, but yes, but also, who cares? This was the best exit for her. This was actually tremendous. What, you're going to work her into an angle, like to rush her out, to stretch out her time, whatever. Whatever. Probably by then, most likely by then, everyone knew she was on her way out. Everyone knew she wanted to leave. I've heard that that her WWE dream started rubbing some people the wrong way. And she just packed up her things and decided to go one day. That's all. Just like, no, okay, I'm good. And she didn't need to be back on TV, like for whatever time there was left. Perfect exit. A perfect exit. And Toni Storm becomes a superstar. And that's the legacy here. That's what we're winning, is that this is how AEW wins in this situation, is that they played their cards so well that Toni Storm ends up being elevated into true superstardom, and Mariah May is ready to just move on. And that is the most territory thing that I have seen like recently, that just It's something that you would have seen multiple times in the past, and now you're seeing it here, sort of out of nowhere. Like it's legitimately the best way to see it. Is it the only way to see it? No, you can argue with me, but I can listen to your arguments, but I have a lot of trouble. Considering any other argument that this was not the best way to finish everything off, and that Mariah May's time in AEW wrapping up like this is really just like so fucking ideal that you just never see that anymore, right? Let's go over to this super chat that DGMC left. A generous super chat on top of that. Thank you very much, DGMC. I appreciate it very, very much. Ask this into the Discord and wanted your take. Could Mariah May's AEW run set the tone for the future? Fresh young talent to intentionally use the company as a stepping stone to WWE and actually succeed? That's a very good question. I think that it makes a lot of sense. Like, why not? Because it does make a lot of sense, especially when booked so well, and the person who gets left behind in the promotion is elevated. Like, that's the whole thing, right? Tony Khan absolutely, truly, really hates it when people jump. For a guy who's into the old school wrestling, Mid-South Tony, right? He fucking hates it when people jump because of the optics. Because he doesn't want his promotion to be the AEW stepping stone. Will Ospreay started talking about that. What was it, last week? He did an interview or something, and he said those exact words. It's like, I was following the AEW release, the WWE releases, right? And he was like, AEW is not going to become a turnstile for people to come and boost themselves up to go back to WWE, right? Will Ospreay said that. Will Ospreay wouldn't be saying that if these are not conversations that are happening backstage, I don't think. Super chat from, thank you very much, AEW Women's, excuse me, I thought I was going to sneeze for a second. No, I am not going to say about that. What? That was fucking goofy. Thank you very much, AEW Women's Division blog. I'm sorry about that. I really thought I was going to sneeze. Thank you for the super chat. I'll take my time now with it. Wrestling needs more neat and tidy stories where characters are essentially quote unquote killed off, like Mariah May, instead of continually asking what's next. Yes, God damn it. Yes. That's why mobility is good. When you're done in a promotion, when you're finished, you move on to somewhere else. And then you go off and you do something else somewhere, and then you can circle back to the territory one day if you want. But you go off and that was the main advantage of the territory system. That's why a lot of guys were able to keep themselves over for so long, because they were able to move around like that. They did their stint, put someone over on their way out, maybe hung around in the mid card a little bit, and then they fucked off. But I understand that the game is different today. Okay? Like, I'm not stupid. I understand that the game is different today, and the optics of people leaving from promotion to promotion gets people like really, really upset or, unnerved. I don't know what's the term you want to use. People get really, really annoyed. It becomes a big thing. Tony fumbled, clap, 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 all that stuff, where it should be the most normal thing on earth. It just should be the most normal thing on earth. Of course, you hang on to your stars, like the big stars, the people who define your company. You hang on to those. You do as much as you can to hang on to these people. But then there's a lot of people you can discard off your roster too. There's a lot of people that you can just like cut away. Like, all right, see you next time. Keep that rolling. But no, everyone has to be locked into contracts, and there's no mobility. You stay here, and then you turn into an Apollo Crews, right? Where he's like somehow a WWE lifer, but doesn't do jack, It's weird. I still think it's weird to have that kind of mentality, but it's a team sport now, just like everything. I would bet 10 Canadian rubber bucks, that Tony Khan did everything in his power to keep Mariah May in the company and threw all sorts of zeros at her so she could stay. She would stay because of his profound dislike of people jumping, because Tony loved the storyline, the timeless Tony All About Eve thing. He loved it. So of course, wanted to hang on to all these moving parts. And again, I think it is safe to assume that he threw as much money as he could at Mariah, but I would assume that Mariah declined and chances are accepted an offer that was beneath what she was being offered at AEW, just to have the opportunity to work in WWE. A Stephanie Vaquer type of situation, right? Stephanie Vaquer told the story not that long ago where she was like, I got offers from both. I was in Toronto, got offers from both, got a higher offer from AEW, went back to WWE, and they said, we can't match that. Go have fun and go work for them and then come back and see us. And she cried, but she went and took the lower offer, right? Look, I have no inside information. I obviously was not there during the contract negotiations, but Mariah strikes me here. The situation with Mariah strikes me that she just accepted to go work for WWE, probably for less money than she would be making on a re-sign here. Because look, there is no way Tony Khan was okay with letting her go. There's people on this roster that he's okay to let go. There's people that he will be letting go, that he will not be renewing coming up. Again, we're not done here. But there are people that are not going to continue, and Tony's like, sure. But seeing how Mariah was part of a tremendous angle that had a lifespan for over, 18 months or so? The entire All About Eve shtick, right? That ended on such a high, and she was an integral part of it. I'm convinced that Tony Khan was extremely interested in keeping Mariah May around because she's an identifiable part of AEW, and he just didn't want her to jump. He just didn't want it. And I can understand that. But Mariah, she wanted to be in WWE. Look, you've probably all seen the pictures being shared of old photographs from her Instagram account where she's attending a WWE live event saying, one day I'll be here and all that jazz, one day I'll make it to WWE. There you go. And that is going to be something upon which WWE is going to try and lean on as much as possible. This desire, not desire, that's the wrong word. To lean into the boyhood dream, the childhood dream, the girlhood dream. Is girlhood a word? The childhood dream of joining WWE, of being a part of the big league, right? And they'll use that for, a bright-eyed wrestler who's like, this is all I ever wanted. Reportedly, Jordan Grace also accepted less money. Now, can you make the argument that they're investing in themselves and, if things go well down the road, they'll get a bigger payoff? Yes, sure. Absolutely. But that also leads me to think that we are probably in an era where the biggest marks in professional wrestling are the wrestlers themselves. Right? And it's wild to think, but that, if you've got people, look, because there's a time in pro wrestling where if you didn't show the green, no one would go. No one no one would leave Memphis to go work world class because they're like, oh man, I get to work in the bright lights of world class. Bear with me here. No one did that. It's like whoever's paying the most, because everyone understood there's a shelf life when you're a pro wrestler, and you got to make as much money as you can while you can. Just as simple as that. Now, look, again, I understand the game has changed. Sports medicine is in a completely different place now, and professional wrestlers are able to reap the benefits of that, as opposed to back in the day where it's like, oh, you're in pain, here's a bottle of pills and a bottle of vodka, and see you tomorrow night. The tour, we're on a 5-day tour. This is night 2. See you tomorrow. So, it's like, I understand that the game is different, but it floors me to believe that the wrestlers themselves just might end up being the biggest marks in pro wrestling when I hear stuff like Stephanie Vicaire, which is like, and I know it's like she's following her dream, and that's noble. That's great, but she's turning down more money to go work for another company, which, by the way, can absolutely be paying her the same amount of money she's being offered by Tony Khan. Yeah. It's not as if WWE ain't flush for cash these days. So it's not as if they can't pay her. They choose not to because they're banking on her going, yes, I will take the smaller offer to work to be able to achieve my dream of wrestling for World Wrestling Entertainment. Do I have respect for that? I don't know. Not when I can understand someone's dream, and I can back someone who's like, I'm working towards my dream. But the problem that I have is when they're marks enough or blinded enough. How about that? They're blinded enough by the bright lights of WWE to not realize that they could be getting more money because this is a $1 billion company, and you are ready to make the concession of getting a smaller paycheck because you want to work for them. You have no leverage. This is not business. That's no leverage. It's like Jordan Grace when she came in. She had no leverage. Even if she wanted to negotiate a bigger salary, they were like, oh, sure thing, Jordan. You're going to stick around TNA for another 2 years. Yep, sure. Same thing with Joe Hendry. Do you think Joe Hendry has any leverage? This is another guy whose dream is, oh, I'm going to make it to WWE. And he's going to, I don't know how much they're offering. Can't be that high. Because that guy's got no leverage. He's not a real star. So, and everything is so clear. But then again, look, people see him get humiliated at WrestleMania, the biggest show of the year for WWE, both in attendance and viewership. He gets humiliated on TV, on pay-per-view at WrestleMania, and people are clapping and saying, masterful gambit, Mr. Hendry. Say your name and you'll get RKO'd. Bravo. It's like no one understands that this is a fucking business. And no one understands in these people that you can be dropped out of that company in a snap. We've seen it in the past couple of days. We've seen it for a long time, but particularly in the past couple of days. It's a fascinating world I live in, we live in, but me particularly, because it's all about me. But it is a peculiar world in which everything that I have ever learned about pro wrestling and wrestlers and, how their contracts work, from all throughout the ages, like this is the first time where there are people who are like, I am ready to drop everything. I am ready to bend over backwards for an opportunity to wrestle in WWE. I will take less money. I will move to Orlando. I will do everything that is required of me just to have a moment. And everyone thinks they're different. Everyone thinks they're the one. They're not going to be one of the countless that have ended up in the lower card, that have been fired from the company, that have been sent to NXT, that have been sent to TNA. Everyone thinks they're different. That's normal. You have to have an ego to go into this business. So of course you're different than anyone else. You know, you can be told, don't go to WWE. You're a luchador, and you're told, don't go to WWE. WWE never pushes their luchadors. What's the point? But you're going to go anyway because you're special. You're different. You're Mystico. You're Andrade. You're Black Mask, right? You're Andrade Almas, right? That was his name. You're Stephanie Vaquer. You're Rey Fenix. You're Pentel Zero M. You're all the, we're not like the others. I'm going to be the next Rey Mysterio for this company. It's going to be me. It's strange, but look, again, I'm not saying that this is exactly what happened in the case of Mariah May. I just want to be very, very, very clear that I do not know for certain, but tell me if I'm wrong. Like, tell me if what I'm saying is completely off base, because there's the proof out there on the internet that going to WWE was her absolute dream. She is not getting a big time 7-figure contract, not in their eyes. A 7-figure contract, maybe Tony offered her that, and she turned it down for an opportunity to be special in WWE. And I wish her luck. I really do. R-Truth, Ron Killings, K-Quick went on, I think it was Twitter, and basically said that he was gone from the company, and thanked everyone for his support. Do I have the article? Do I have not the article, but the thing? I think I might have the exact statement here. I do. I'm sorry to inform you all, I just got released from WWE. I want to thank WWE for the ride, but all caps, mostly, I want to thank each and all caps, every one of you who was along for the ride. Thank you for all the love, support, and appreciation you have given me over the years. Thank you. Now, this was quickly confirmed by Fightful. It was like, yep, this is not a bit. It's not R-Truth being wacky. No, he's gone. Or he will be gone, because in his statement on Twitter, he did come across, it did sound like he had been released, right? I just got released from WWE, but Fightful confirmed that his contract isn't being renewed. It is not an outright release. So this, when did this happen? 2 days ago from the time we're recording, right? No, yesterday. Right, yesterday, June 1st. So this was announced yesterday. And boy, oh boy, did it set the world of wrestling on fire for this, the outpouring of amazement, shock, frustration, incomprehension, befuddlement for the non-renewal of a contract for a 53-year-old prelim comedy guy. I've never seen this before. You'd swear it's 1992. When was it? And Ric Flair showing up on WWF. Like that's how it felt like. Now, we got to start parsing through this before my Gen X cynicism starts coming in too hard here. Talent is out there, they're posting statements and they're sad and whatnot, and I can understand. Ron Killings is beloved. He's a great backstage guy. People really like him. I can understand that. I can buy into that. Okay. You see someone leave that you really like and that is universally loved in the locker room. You're like, this sucks. It's not going to be the same. So you put out your statement. Yeah, you do your Kevin Owens, breaking things down and whatnot. And you're like, I can get that. These are your coworkers. I can support that. That's fine. I legitimately don't have an issue with that. But then it can go a little far. even for talent, because I saw the world's strongest goofball, Mark Henry, on the Busted Open show. And he was, I swear to God, he was acting like Killings was dead. I at some point I'm listening to the clip and I'm like, does Mark Henry know he's still alive? Because he was saying, if I were WWE, I, would hold a tribute. I'd have one night on Raw where everyone does like little spot tributes to Ron Killings and everyone does it, right? And then I'd air videos, testimonials of people telling about how great a person Ron was and how they were touched by him. And I'm like, this is all lovely and beautiful sentiment, don't get me wrong. But he's not dead. People are acting like he's dead. Of course, fans create these parasocial relationships with these folks, and they can't distinguish reality from fiction. So they're all broken up. They're doing tribute threads to Killings. And I'm like, I don't understand. Like, I can understand you can be upset. The guy's not retiring. The guy's not dead. He just got fired, or he no longer will be employed from one wrestling promotion. It's fine. 53 years old. He's been doing the comedy bit for like 15 years or so at this point. Something to that effect. How long has he been doing the comedy thing? It has to be something like that, right? A guy who was pretty much like at the, wasn't exactly, even like 15 odd years ago, wasn't exactly at the top of his physical form anymore. He had much past his prime. He extended his career easily by going off and just being a goofball and doing comedy and doing it really, really well. Now, I don't want to sit here and sound like some sourpuss. You're like, you don't like the comedy word? No. In fact, I think most comedy spots in pro wrestling are kind of dumb because I think wrestlers are easily amused. You see comedy spots in Japan sometimes. I saw stuff at a show, the Crazy Fest show a couple of months ago. Hiromu Takahashi's in a comedy match and he's doing comedy things, and it's funny because at some point they're sticking shit up their asses, and I'm like, this is not funny. This is not funny. But R-Truth was legitimately funny. He had a great sense of humor, comedy, of what is funny, and on top of that, had the timing and the characterization to pull it off. So I'm not saying that what his contributions were minimal or stupid. No, he was very good. Like, if you want to create a pantheon of the great comedy pro wrestlers in history, you want to do a Mount Rushmore. You put Ron Killings on there. I think I would. It makes sense. Who else would you put there? Chat. Toru Yano? Sure. But then after that, look, I don't know. Look, let's not lose track here. I'm not going to spend the rest of the podcast trying to come up with a Mount Rushmore of great pro wrestling comedy wrestlers. That not tonight. Not now. Not now. But he was very good. He was very good and undeniable. But this is a guy who was absolutely past his prime, 100% past his prime, and was able to extend his career for, like I said, at least another decade. And that is impressive. That is a huge deal. And you can only show respect to that. That's how good he was. And here's another guy who leaves the company, and I'm like, this nice little exit. His last match is a big time main event on the John Cena. It wasn't even a main event, excuse me, but a big time match against John Cena during John Cena's farewell tour. That's his last match in WWE. That ain't so bad. It's pretty good, right? The match, I've been told, was not good, but that's a whole other discussion. Let's keep this, let's keep this on the surface level, especially to my points here. But for some reason, it was decided that Ron Killings was no longer needed. His services were no longer needed in WWE. And this guy who, like I said, was a prelim comedy act, drove fandom completely upside down. And there's really two huge and to some extent incomprehensible reactions that happen here. For those of you with the benefit of video, I'm going to pull up some reactions here. Okay. A lot of people were mourning his loss, saying WWE will never be the same, etc., etc. But then the most baffling thing that I've seen were tweets like this one here. These are probably the most baffling here, where people were calling for Ron Killings, K-Quick, R-Truth to go to AEW and pitching ideas like this. R-Truth going to AEW, where he sees all the ex-WWE talent like Edge, Lashley, Christian, etc., and thinks he's still in WWE, would be an incredible bit. Here's another great pitch. Ron Killings randomly starts appearing in Tony Storm's segments in full butler attire. Tony Storm no-sells the entire thing. Luther gets increasingly agitated each week, with Tony saying, "What is your issue, Luther?" Eventually, they just do a match between Killings and Luther for custody of Tony Storm. Halfway through, Killings yells, "Stop!" And then he says, "My bad, I don't even go here," and just walks away and is never seen again. And there is so many calls from AEW fans to bring Killings into the promotion to do a bit where he realizes, where he thinks, I should say, he's in WWE, then at some point goes, "I'm sorry. What a wacky, goofy thing. It's not really WWE here." And people are like, this would be a great idea, wouldn't it be? No, it would not. It's a terrible idea. I don't know why anyone would want this in AEW. I don't understand why anyone would want this in AEW, especially since it would be safe for me to say that most of these fans recently, or over the past few months or whatever, probably been saying, oh, AEW has to bring in less WWE people. Oh, they finally got rid of Miro. Oh, let him go to WWE. Oh, they finally got rid of Malachi Black. Let him go to WWE. And these are probably the same people who are like, oh, the Hurt Business, they kind of suck. They're still the same as they were in WWE. All of these people complaining, Adam Copeland and all of that. And now they want him to come in and emphasize the fact that they're all from WWE. When week after week, myself, I sit in this chair right here in the back, and I review Dynamite, and I say week after week, AEW has to continue to distance itself from WWE. It has to be different. It has to do things to be different. It can't just sit there and try to do the same things. It has to do something completely different. This would be a complete and utter failure of everything that the company has been doing properly for months than to let him come in and do one of his bits. But now he's confused. He thinks that, walking up to Ricochet and thinking, I don't know, he's Carmelo Hayes, hey, you don't miss, and it would be uncomfortable, awkward, and cringe. I don't see the humor in this on any level. I don't see how this is fun. I don't see how this is entertaining. And look, Ron Killings, he's done. He's washed. Physically, he's still got his wits about him, for sure. Oh, but Tony Khan should do this and show that he is much more compassionate than WWE. What is this thing about compassion? First of all, I am not going to sit around and play whose billionaire is better. All right? Like, that is something I have zero interest in, and none of us should be playing. That makes no sense to me. Second of all, compassion? What about compassion? That has nothing to do with compassion. Tony hiring this guy would have nothing to do with compassion. It has nothing to do with it. Can you make money for me? Can you draw attention? Can Ron Killings coming into my company generate revenue for me? Ron Killings, who never drew a dime. Let's be honest. Never drew a dime. He's a fun side attraction in WWE, but they were not filling up arenas and yeeting and pointing to the sky to acknowledge Ron Killings. He's a nice little diversion. He's a comedy act. And again, I like him. I just think fans are overshooting the importance he has on screen or what his capabilities are. It's insane to me. The majority of people on social media thinking that they could run a promotion. When I see shit like this, I'm like, okay, I would never watch a promotion. Never, ever watch it. Not with this kind of stuff. And how does it even make sense? Why would Toni Storm be involved in this? Toni Storm knows selling the whole thing. I think she's evolved from that part of her character too. I don't know if you've noticed, but her character has also evolved from her being confused and seeing everyone as if they were people from the 1940s or 50s. She doesn't do that anymore. She didn't get into the ring and, see Mercedes Moné and called her and call her Mae West. Got in there and she saw it was Mercedes Moné and that's it. But I am flummoxed at the amount of AEW fans who are out there going, bring him in, have him do a bit where he thinks he's in WWE, tee-hee, tee-hee-hee-hee-hee. It would be so quaint. Oh, the jokes. I promise you, it would be embarrassing. AEW on its television for months now hasn't even referenced WWE out loud. I think the last reference that has come out of the last one that happened, that broke a multiple month streak, is just this past Wednesday, when Toni Storm and Mercedes Moné talked about being at the other place, having to leave the other place to become who they truly were, right? So it's even like not even taking a shot, not even being backhanded, just like mentioning it as part of their history, but without mentioning WWE by name. We're not having, MJF week after week talking about the bidding war of 2024, or how he has Bruce Pritchard's number on speed dial, or, Ricky Starks, dropping passive aggressive hints every week. There was a time where it felt like every AEW member of the roster was talking about how great it would be to be in WWE. Remember that era? That has been done. Why suddenly would we bring this back around? Why would you put a Vince McMahon creation on TV in your promotion, unfiltered with the same exact gimmick, same exact thing? Why would you do that? I went off a little too much. Went off on a little tangent here, because the more surprising / distressing thing is the reactions that hardcore WWE fans have had in regards to this news, because their fan base is not dealing well with Ron Killings leaving. They're really not, which again, flummoxes me. I don't understand it, but I'm not a fan. I don't watch, but if he was that crucial to the company, they'd probably keep him around, right? But these are the reactions that we're getting. I'm going to, 2 examples here. With WWE sold to Endeavor, the grime of corporate culture that erodes family-run businesses spread like a cancer. Mark Shapiro is the judge, and it feels like Chris Legentil is his executioner. Shapiro is notoriously known for cost-cutting and empty profit tactics that squeeze value while gutting identity, right? Here's another one. WWE was at its hottest when Endeavor bought it and merged it with UFC to form TKO. It's crazy how they took a red-hot company and completely killed its momentum to the point where nothing feels organic anymore. Greed is destroying the sport we once loved. This is coming from hardcore WWE fans, and off of the off of R-Truth's announcement. And I'm sure you all understand what they're doing here. They're blaming TKO for the stuff that's going on, for these releases, departures, and the state of the company and its creative right now. It is phenomenal to me, absolutely phenomenal, that people are ready to go to these depths to blame everyone except the people who should be blamed, to the person who should be blamed. We return to this guy here. He's talking about Mark Shapiro. We're talking about Chris Legentil. Here we're outright just saying TKO. Endeavor. It's Endeavor's fault, TKO. That is ruining WWE. Their greed is destroying the company, the sport we once loved. And I think this is formidable and tremendous, because these people don't understand anything on how anything works in the real world. Chad, I know how many of you in here work in some kind of corporate structure, right? I don't know if what you do. In my day-to-day life, I do. It is very much part of what I do in my daily grind. So I can guide people through this. I'm not a corporate lawyer, no, but you don't need to be a corporate lawyer to understand how corporate structures work. Okay? So you can take my word for it here. When I walk you through this, we've talked about this just a couple of weeks ago, but let's have this refresher. TKO is a holding company, okay? I just pulled up the definition on Wikipedia. I'm going to read it. A holding company is a company whose primary business is holding a controlling interest in the securities of other companies. A holding company usually does not produce goods or services itself. Its purpose is to own stock of other companies to create a corporate group. I think that's clear, right? So the holding company doesn't provide goods or services. Its job is to buy up shares, ownership shares in other companies, so that its own shareholders can make money. It's capitalism. That's how it goes. That's what a holding company is. So Mark Shapiro has no clue what goes on in the day-to-day organization of WWE or UFC, for that matter. He does not understand anything of the minutia of how to run an MMA fight business or a wrestling promotion. And he doesn't want to know either, because his job, Mark Shapiro, is to make sure that the companies that his company owns are making the most amount of money possible so that him and his shareholders can get the biggest return on investment possible. So his job is to look at spreadsheets, numbers. Doesn't care about names, faces, or doesn't colors of the logo. He doesn't give a flying fuck. He looks at the numbers at the end of the day. Revenues, expenses, all of the other corporate shenanigans that go around it. And when it comes to employees, staff, names, they're all numbers, amounts, the number of people we have in this department and that department. He doesn't give a shit. Historically speaking, okay, EBITDA, exactly, you're getting it. Historically, any company that gets hired, that gets purchased by a holding company is bad news for the company being purchased. Because whatever that company that's being purchased was working on, which is usually a product, a good, a service, the primary goal of that company will no longer be to create the most value, the best product, deliver the best service. It will no longer be that. It will be to serve the interest of its owner. And its owner is going to want you to be as streamlined and as efficient as possible so that you're making money. Oh, you were spending 25% of your budget in research and development. We're going to chop that down to 15. You were providing, it was 20% of the budget that was going into customer support. It's going to be 8% now. We're throwing numbers around, but we get slashed and things like that. I say we, but not me specifically, but that's the idea. All of these things where a holding company can feel like it's excess spending will get chopped. And usually these are in situations where the product or what you're selling, it starts to lose value. It starts to devalue itself because it no longer becomes part of a vision for a product or a vision for a company, a service. It's no longer about the service. It's about keeping everything as tight as possible, focused on one thing, maximize revenues. And historically, again, you look at companies that have been picked up by holding companies, and typically speaking, innovation, research, those things become stunted because of these new ownerships. Why? Just told you. Because they don't give a shit. All they give a shit about is money. How much money can you make for me? And I don't care where you have to cut. I don't care what you need to slash. I don't care what decisions you need to do. You have to make me more money. That's what TKO is for. Right? Are we clear on that, chat? Everything is good? Are we clear on that? Good. So, Mark Shapiro. So, Ari Emanuel is the CEO, but Mark Shapiro is he's president and COO. He's the chief operating officer. So, there's a good chance that we'll stick with Mark Shapiro for this example. So, Mark Shapiro, at some point, he's got his spreadsheets open. He's looking at all the numbers, and he picks up the phone and he gives Dana White and Nick Khan a call. Says, boys, for the next trimester, by the end of the next trimester, we need to be hitting these targets. You need to cut this percentage out. Figure it out. So then Dana White, Nick Khan go over to on their teams and they say, look, this is what we got to do. And then you do a meeting to try and figure out where they can cut, 4% of expenses, whatever Mark Shapiro decided. So Mark Shapiro, TKO, will give the order to say, you guys need to cut some expenses, but it's the people under him, who make these decisions. And it just so happens that Dana White and Nick Khan have teams of guys and gals who can help figure this out for them. You have, for instance, on WWE's side, you have a guy who is in charge of, who is the chief creative officer. And he just so happens to be in charge of talent relations. So talent relations is always probably a good spot where you can free up some money quick if you get rid of these big money accounts. These big money salaries that we have. Very easy to cast off. It's not Mark Shapiro who's sitting there looking at all the numbers and saying, yeah, this guy, Ron Killings, Kate Quick, you got to get rid of him. No, it's going to be WWE that's going to figure it out. And not only is it going to be WWE who's going to make the decision, it's going to be Triple H who's going to make the decision. And you can go around and try to defend and try to pass the blame around. But it is one guy in that company who decides who gets the axe, who specifically he needs to get rid of because his boss told him that his boss wants him to cut 4% of expenses. It is up to the guy who is working under Nick Khan to figure it out. Nick Khan at the same time, all he wants is results. That's all he wants. He wants to know whether or not I was able to save so much money. What'd you have to do? Oh, I had to get rid of this person and that person and that person. All right, fine. And that amounts to so much. There you go. Thank you. And Dana White does the same thing on his side. But specifically, we're talking about WWE here, right? I don't know why people have to bend over backwards trying to find ways to protect WWE or protect Paul Levesque, of all fucking people. He is the guy who makes these calls. He is the guy who is going to sit down and is going to have to make the hard decisions. And if it's Chris Legentil who makes the calls, well, Chris Legentil is making the call because his boss, Triple H, told him to do it. It's not Chris Legentil who's deciding who gets the boot. He doesn't have that authority. I don't know why we're spinning, we're trying to spin this in all sorts of ways to try and protect Paul Levesque. He is the guy. I can promise you, Mark Shapiro does not know who Ron Killings is. He doesn't know who Carlito Caribbean Cool is. He doesn't know who Sarah fucking Logan is. And he doesn't want to because it's not his job. It's not him who's cutting people. It's Hunter Hearst Helmsley who's cutting people. There's a lot of blame to pass around. No, there isn't. There is no blame to be passed around because people are getting cut. It's TKO that is mandating its subsidiaries to cut costs, and then it's the bosses of their own respective departments who decide, well, we're gonna have to get rid of some talent. And maybe in the meantime, the guys that are in charge of production are like, well, we're gonna have to spend less on this bullshit or whatever. You know what I mean? It's not Nick Khan. Nick Khan has that's why you have fucking vice presidents. He's the guy that everyone has to be accountable to, and he has to be accountable to his bosses, Mark Shapiro and Ari Emanuel. Ari Emanuel's not sitting back there and rubbing his hands together and going, who will I fire today? That's not it. That's not how it works. That's not how it works in the real world. So that's why when I see all this bullshit about, the WWE and we gotta, what was the guy saying? What was he saying? He was saying, Mark Shapiro is the judge. Mark Shapiro is the guy that is looking out for the interests of the company that owns WWE. Now, if you don't like it, I don't know what to tell you. If you as a fan, you don't like it, I don't know what to tell you. In fact, I do want to know what to tell you. If you don't like what the product is these days, if you don't like how it feels, if you don't like how the creative is, again, there's one man to blame, and that is Paul Levesque. There's only one guy you can blame. He's the guy making the creative calls. Again, it's not Ari Emanuel who's sitting back on Monday nights with his notepad, his notebook open and going, I'm not sure about this Liv Morgan angle. He doesn't do that. And I would say he doesn't give a fuck as long as they keep making money. and WWE keeps making money. So the product is not going to be rife for change here. It's not going to be they're not going to be looking to make any drastic changes. The company is making money hand over fist. So even if WWE fans don't like the product now, they think it's lost its momentum and it's lost, there's one guy to blame. There's one guy to blame. And it's not Mark Shapiro and it's not Ari Emanuel. Because again, they're getting their results, which are all financial, and they're looking at it all and going, we're doing great. Keep it up, Hunter, if anything. Keep it up, Trips. You got it. The golden touch. Keep making us all this money. I think it's really fucking funny. I think it's really funny that Ari Emanuel, like the most powerful agent in Hollywood, right? I think it's funny that fans think that he's like locked in to Raw and SmackDown and the NXT on the CW every week. And he's calling up Trips and he's saying, you kind of missed the mark on, by booking Zelina Vega and Chelsea Green at Saturday night's main event. That kind of sucked. Doesn't know shit. He doesn't care about that. Mega ratings for the show. That he'll care about. Slap his hands together and say, this is the best performing one we've done yet. High five, Hunter. That's what he's going to do. Triple H he's an executor. He is a middleman. He's a middle manager. He has no real decisional power outside of the creative aspects of the company. That's his thing. And Nick Khan has said it himself in interviews. The creative stuff that's not my department. And he hand waves it, right? And he goes, that's Triple H. That's Paul. That's his thing. Don't ask me. That's his department. Not into this shit. Why would he? Doesn't understand. He's a sports agent. What he wants to do is sign multi-million-dollar rights deals. That's what he knows. That's what he does. That's his job. Trips' job is to feed him the content so that he can go sign multi-million-dollar deals everywhere he goes. That's Triple H's job. It's I'm like, the more I think about all of this, the more it's fascinating how this company just how the fans just refuse to see the obvious and point the finger where it should go. But they've all become so invested in Triple H that they're ready to blame everyone else. They were always, you remember when Vince, there was that crossover period when Vince came back after being ousted, and Vince still had his hands in creative, and Triple H also did, and everything that was bad on Raw was because of Vince, and everything that was good was Triple H. Remember that? Then Vince leaves, but now Triple H has no one else. Then, The Rock, he's to blame for WrestleMania. Rock is to blame for WrestleMania. People are losing their jobs in WWE. Oh, that's TKO who's to blame. Can't be anyone else who's to blame here. Just can't be. You got to be some kind of deluded. You got to be some kind of deluded to not be able to figure this out. I don't know. This whole Ron Killing's departure thing has been revelatory, and I see what kind of state the fans are in. And the fans are not happy, and they're not happy with the direction that the product is going. But they're directing all of their frustrations in all sorts of ways, except to the one guy that actually has any influence on creative. The one guy. They just won't do it. I want to talk about the Action Dean 2 show that happened on May 24, 2025 over there in Glendale, Arizona. I want to talk about it more than that. I want to give you my thoughts. We're not just going to, hey, it's a show. There was this guy. I don't know. I'm actually going to give you like a review. I'm going to share some thoughts here. Of course, this was the show that was put together by Action Wrestling in collaboration with Ring of Honor. The second tribute show to Dean Rasmussen. This was set up to be a free show, outdoors, at the Water Dance Plaza. So it seems to be like some kind of, square where there's restaurants. Look, I know next to nothing about Glendale, Arizona, so you're gonna have to forgive me. I'm just basing myself off of what it looked like, with the big, the big billboards, the big LED video boards, not billboards, they're video boards, but act like billboards. They're like billboards, but they're video billboards. Video billboards is what they are. So, and they're LEDs. Anyway, but thankfully we had the LEDs, by the way, those boards, those video billboards. Thankfully we had them throughout the show. Anyway, we'll get to that. If you've already seen the show, you know what I'm talking about. Why are you reviewing this show, Warren, if it was on May 24th? I mean, we're already in June. Hey, listen, pal, shut up. I can do whatever I want. It's my show. But mostly because the video on demand was released earlier this week? What was it like? Was it Tuesday or Thursday? Something to that effect. I think it was Tuesday. And I got around to watch it, and it was like, oh, well, it'll be perfect to add to the Mr. Warren Hayes show proper, just to wrap that bit up. The original Dean tribute show happened in 2024 during WrestleMania week and was considered to be the best show of that entire WrestleMania week. Does this show live up to that expectations? Look, I thought this was a solid little wrestling show, lasted under 2 hours. Show just flies by, and literally, like, at some point I was watching and was like, oh my goodness, okay, we are flying through this card. We like a full hour in, I'm like, holy smokes, okay, there's like, at that point there was like 2 matches left or something. I was like, okay, man, we're not wasting any time here, and I can appreciate that. Look, it was a good show that I enjoyed, and I think if you're the type of person who likes to just pick up something different, you want to watch some other wrestling that you're used to, you just want to, and also that includes some faces, some names that you know about, or at the very least that you've heard about. This one is perfect. Like, it's a perfect watch. It was a very good show. I enjoyed it. What can we do other than start reviewing it, really? Like I mentioned, this was outdoors. This was an outdoor show. I guess doing it in Phoenix, keeps you, it shields you, I should say, from, wacky weather patterns, as opposed to doing one like around where I live, where it's like, you never quite know what you're going to get. I'm assuming like, it wasn't that much of a risk, but yeah, and it paid off. Like, it was a beautiful day. Apparently it was quite hot. And the setup was very cool. Like, it looked really different, than most wrestling shows that you watch, because it's outdoors, because it's a crowd that sort of, cycles in and out, comes and watches a bit and then walks away. And, you do, the hardcores were right. The people who were there to really watch the show were there at the front. And then you'd have, you'd see, people walking in and out. And it was an interesting setup, to say the least. I think it's gone around now. Everyone mentions in all these reviews, and I'll mention it now. We'll get it out of the way. Yes, they did have trouble with the lighting at some point during the show, but the video boards, the video billboards, as we've established, they provided all sorts of light, to the degree that it was something that gave it its very own flavor. I did not hate it, because the billboards obviously would switch, and some were brighter, some were darker, some had a little more yellow in it, some had a little more blue, a little more tungsten type of lighting. So it'd flicker through these light patterns, essentially, these light colors, I should say. But when I say flicker, not anything that would, trigger an epileptic seizure or anything. It wasn't anything that was overwhelming, but it would switch through. And I thought that was pretty interesting. I thought it was very, very interesting. It was kind of like, sometimes when you see these fight scenes from the future in movies or whatnot, or in video games. You know, you have the, you know, it's shot and you have the lightings that are, the lighting changes, you know, and sort of creates different moods and whatnot. That's what this was. That's what it came across as anyway. You know, I look, if they had done this in a parking lot somewhere, we would have been in real trouble. You wouldn't have seen Lee Moriarty and Matt Mako have their match, essentially. You know, if it had been in any other type of circumstance. So doing it there was actually a really smart move. They could have done a lot worse. Anyway, so one of the things I like to do in my reviews a lot is start from the top of the card and work my way down. And I think this is what we're going to do here as well. I think the last two matches were the best matches of the show. So yeah, you know, let's get excited. Let's get hype. Let's start with the last two matches where the main event was Mad Dog Connolly defeating Adam Priest in a dog collar match, because as you know, Mad Dog Connolly, that's his specialty. That's all he does. He walks around with a dog collar set up, you know, with the chain and the other collar at the end of it. Not just a dog collar. He walks with the whole gimmick, the whole wrestling gimmick. So that anyone who wants to challenge him is like instantly suckered into a mad dog, a dog collar match. But it could be a mad dog collar match as well. So here's something funny that started off the match. The ring announcer gets into the ring and says, the match will begin once both competitors have their collars secured around their necks or whatever the fuck, right? Basically was saying, you know, the match will start once everyone is all tied up. That's when we go. But of course, you know, Connolly and Priest, they take some shots at each other beforehand, right? And Adam Priest sort of gets the upper hand. So Mike Posey is trying to put the collar around Adam Priest, but he can't. Adam Priest just beat up Mad Dog, and Posey's like fumbling with it. He's like, and I'm looking at this and I'm like, is this a shoot? Like, I'm not sure because he's fumbling about rather, you know, sincerely, let's put it that way. And Adam Priest is just standing there, and, you know, and he's not like emoting. He's not like doing, come on, ref, or anything. He's just like, no, just get it done. In the meantime, you know, Mad Dog is getting back up to his feet because sure, he got beat down a bit, but he's regaining his senses, and this is taking really long. So Adam Priest sort of breaks away from Posey and drop kicks Mad Dog, only to go back and try to get the collar put on him, but he still can't. But Posey is complete, like he's all thumbs. It's like he hasn't figured out how this works. It's like a belt. You just, you know, you put the belt pin through a hole and you tighten it, and that's it. Like, you know, that's all it is. But so I don't know if he's fumbling for real or not, but if he was like actually fumbling, if this was actually an issue, I think it's tremendous, because then that means that Mike Posey, that Adam Priest went after Mad Dog because he saw it was taking too much time, and Mad Dog was getting up to, because Mad Dog could only sell for so long. So he started getting up, and you know, both of these guys' wrestler instincts took over, right? Mad Dog is like, look, I can't be passed out here for 6 minutes. It wasn't 6 minutes, but you get what I mean. I can't be passed out here for 3 minutes just because you gave me you gave me a lariat or whatever. I don't remember what exactly he did to take him down. So is it that the guy's instinct started to kick in, where Mad Dog starts getting back up because that's what naturally would happen, and Adam Priest saw that and was like, okay, well, drop kick, and then went back to do the thing? If so, that's super cool. Another thing that would be super cool is that if this was all like a shoot, you know, Posey's trying to put it on, and eventually Mad Dog gets back up to his feet again and just lunges at Adam Priest, and he puts the collar on. Like, you know, he takes Priest down and then puts the collar on him. You know, Mad Dog does it. And then the match starts. So if Posey was truly having a hard time trying to put on a fucking dog collar on Adam Priest, and these guys were playing into it this way, that they were letting their wrestler instincts take over, basically, where it's like, look, the script is not working. The thing that's supposed to happen is not happening. Let's just go ahead and do our own thing. Let's make this look natural in another way. Well, then that's great instincts by both Priest and Mad Dog, especially Mad Dog at the end. If he's like, fuck this shit, it's taking forever, lunge, I'll do it myself. He shoves the referee out. I'll do it. And he does it, and he locks him. But am I getting worked? It could be. It could be all an elaborate work. If so, Mike Posey looks like a dope. Mike Posey looks like a dope in both situations. Only the only difference is that one of these two situations, Mike Posey was in kayfabe and the other he's not. So he doesn't look as bad if he's in the kayfabe position where bumbling referee cannot attach the dog collar. But if he's in the position of, bumbling referee cannot put the dog collar on the wrestler in a shoot capacity, well, then that's probably a worse look. That's probably worse, right? But I thought that was funny. I thought that was pretty good. And look, I mean, it's a fight. It's brutal. Is it the most violent dog collar match that I have ever seen? No, it's not. But it was a lot of fun. It was physical. It was a brawl. They spent a lot of time on the floor, which was tremendous. with both guys using the chain for leverage in some really fun ways. Mad Dog gets so brutal on Priest that Priest blades. So he has some color here to warm up this main event that was already pretty hot. We go into the ring. Adam Priest does a pile driver after dragging Mad Dog back in. Adam Priest has with him a corrective dog collar. I think, well, that's what they were calling them. It's one of these dog collars that has prongs that, sort of apply pressure on the dog's neck. I think it's like look, I don't know exactly how they use it. I don't know exactly what they're for. I wouldn't use it on my dog personally. But we're not turning into a PETA podcast here. But nonetheless, he had one of those, and because he was sitting with his Rottweiler in a promo earlier, and he showed off that his dog had this collar here. Beautiful dog he has, by the way. And he uses it on Mad Dog Connolly, on the face. I'm like, oh Christ, this is kind of okay. Like that's kind of nasty. I mentioned this because this will come into play for the finish, and he's reaching out to audience members so that they'll keep him from getting back into the ring. He's holding on to their arms, and they're pulling back, but of course that doesn't work out. Mad Dog wraps the corrective dog collar around Priest's neck, and then proceeds to strangle him over the top or the second rope, something like that, and basically the ref stops the match because it's too gruesome. It's too gruesome. Good finish. I like the finish. I like this match a lot. I gave it 3 3/4 stars. I thought it was a lot of fun. I really, really thought it was a lot of fun. A great pace, like a really, really great fast-paced match. But if you're thinking about this being, this satisfying, bloody, violent dog collar match, well, this ain't what it is. There's a little blood. Don't get me wrong. Adam Priest did bleed. He's not a great bleeder, but nonetheless, there was some color in the match. These are two guys right now whose stock is just rising all the time. Adam Priest has been at this for quite a while, right? He's no spring chicken when it comes to pro wrestling. He's been doing this quite a while. Got a huge endorsement by Bryan Danielson, who cut a promo. We'll talk about it in a second. He cut a promo before the match started, came to the ring, and put over Adam Priest as the best as the best wrestler on the U.S. Indies right now, which is a hell of an endorsement. A lot of people agree as well. I think he's absolutely tremendous. And when I think about it, because, you hear someone say, oh, it's the best, he's the best, or she's the best professional wrestler or whatever, instantly you're like, okay. Let me think about that. And then you think about it and you're like, I can't make a compelling argument for anyone that is a better professional wrestler who is currently unsigned, still officially on the indies, than Adam Priest. I'm trying to think. I mean, maybe you listening right now, you're screaming into your phones at me. You're saying, this guy, Warren, but it's like Adam Priest is tremendous. And Mad Dog Connolly is as well, on a completely different level, where Mad Dog is more like he's more of a Bruiser Brody type. We're not talking he's not a technical expert. He's not he's not a Bryan Danielson. He's not a Zack Sabre Jr., but he's amazing at what he does. What he does is fantastic on its own. He's legitimately tremendous, and his stock has been on the rise as well since last year. Of course, he will run the risk of running. There's a lot of running, but he will run the risk of running the dog collar gimmick into the ground if he does it too much. But it's been a year. They're still interesting. People still seem to enjoy them. He's doing great work. Both of these guys are doing great work in Deadlock Pro on top of that. So it's a good opportunity for you right now for free, by the way. Don't forget, I forgot to mention this at the top. This is all available for free on the Ring of Honor YouTube channel, right? You no subscriptions needed. You can watch this, whenever you want. So if you want to see two guys who currently have whose stock is extremely high right now, doing it out there on the indies, go right ahead. I don't think Adam Priest is going to be unsigned for very long. I can't see it. Like I can't. From back when he started to now, he's polished off everything. Like not only his in-ring has improved tremendously, like he truly is a total package wrestler, but his persona, his character, how he presents himself, his confidence, you saw it in the promo that he recorded. He's just on a completely other level than what he used to be. He is so good. He's not going to stay unsigned for long. And Mad Dog, I think, like, if anything, catch the wave. I'm sure a lot of you hear about Mad Dog Connolly. Well, there you go. Go right in. Again, maybe not Mad Dog's craziest dog collar match. I think the Dean one from last year is better. In fact, I know it was, but this was very good nonetheless. Don't let that deter you. You're sort of like, picking between your two favorite types of chocolate here and whatever. So, it's not that big a deal. I gave this 3 3/4 stars. Did I say that? Did I say that out loud? I'll say it again. 3 3/4 stars. Good match. Good main event. Next, we had the 10-man Cibernetico match featuring a bevy of luchadors. But yeah, it turned out it was a 10-man tag team Cibernetico, which is fine. It was all right. And look, this was really good and ran the gamut of a bunch of great luchadors, old and new, essentially. I think mostly what it boils down to was how good of a sample this was to show like going from, the freshest faced newcomers like Zelwa and Neon to all the way to, some of the standards, some of the like Virus or of course Blue Panther, right? And you had a whole gamut of wrestlers in between who were absolutely tremendous. And look, this was fantastic. This was right up my alley. Instead of like breaking down action and stuff, I wrote down like a couple of highlights and such. such as the one of the early exchanges in the match was between Blue Panther and Zelwa. Now, Zelwa is he's like a 21-year-old. Off the top of my head, I can't remember his age, but he's, another one of these super stupid young kids who's super talented at pro wrestling. He's starting off, and his name is really starting to build. He's a CMLL wrestler, and it's really starting to build. And here he is wrestling, a maestro, a master, a top guy, 64-year-old Blue Panther, right? So you really have the future versus the past to a degree. You have that's exactly the composition of the match, essentially, of who was in the match was basically reflected here. You literally have two completely different generation of pro wrestlers. So I was like, this is kind of nice. So that was kind of nice to start off. I enjoyed that. And 64 years old, Blue Panther can still do things that a lot of guys 15 years younger than him can't even dream of doing. He's legit. I'm not trying to tell you here that he's this dynamo, but the stuff that he does for a 64-year-old guy is phenomenal. There was a fun exchange with Dr. Cerebro and Virus as well. Hologram got some good shine here using Euphoria as a base. That was a lot of fun. And then we started doing eliminations. I think it was Virus who got the first one, getting rid of Zelwa. Averno was absolutely a highlight here, but that's what he's always been tremendous at. Of course, Averno is probably Mystico's most celebrated rival. The guy who the Rudo that really helped elevate Mystico, the Technico, to godlike status, and that's what he was doing here as well, doing some really great stuff. Blue Panther, he was amazing throughout. He lasted the entire match, actually. And then finally, we had our final four. On the Technico side, we had Blue Panther and Hologram. On the Rudos, it was Volador Jr. and Averno. In typical fashion, you have your final guys. So, there's a lot more dynamic exchange, a few more power moves coming out. Blue Panther ate a double superplex by the Rudos. The Technicos are doing dives. Well, I think Blue Panther, he did a running cannonball senton off the apron, which he still does to this day. And Hologram was just electric with his dives. I don't know what was going on here. And then Blue Panther and Hologram get simultaneous pins or finishes on the Rudos to get the win. So there you go. The Rudos, and then finally Blue Panther and Hologram get simultaneous finishes on the Rudos. So there you go. The winners, the Technicos, represented by Blue Panther and Hologram. That was tremendous. I look, it's 4 stars. I like this a lot. I thought it was a great match. I think it was a great Cybernetico. Look, if you listen to the Mr. Warren Hayes show, come on stream and stuff, I often talk about CMLL, and I know a lot of people are into it or don't know exactly who I'm talking about. I think there's more and more people, but if they're, first of all, there's probably a couple of names that I dropped in this review, this part of the review here, where you're like, oh, I've heard you mention this name before, so on and so forth. So yeah, probably. But I think this is a good match to get acquainted with some of the very best luchadors out there. Some legitimately tremendous, great luchadors, and also some up and comers like Zelua, like Neon. Oh, we'll throw Hologram in that as well. It's a kind of like a what was it called? The sampler. What was the thing? The Wilson sampler. What was that called? You know what I'm talking about? The one that had all the candies. Not Werther's, Wilkinson's, Wilson sampler. What was it called? Whitman sampler is what I'm talking. It was a Whitman slampler. Sure. It was a Whitman sampler of professional wrestling, of lucha libre even. Yeah, this was a lot of fun. Dynamic, a blast. Just a blast, and a great match to have outdoors too. You know what I mean? And it all sort of came together. It was great. I really liked it. 4 stars for me. And then after that, Bryan Danielson comes out, a bit of a surprise, unannounced, and gives a little bit of a rah-rah speech. He puts over Blue Panther big time. Of course, he had mentioned multiple times that Blue Panther, in the past, he's mentioned multiple times that Blue Panther was his favorite luchador. And he said it again a couple of times, made sure we understood that he was the man. Put over the DVD-VR writers like Dean, and big time independent wrestling as well. He put that over, talking to an audience, said, people are here with their families, and you guys, you're here with your kids. Are you having a good time? And they go, wee. It's like, just, a nice little appearance by Danielson that I feel sort of makes all of this feel very complete. Danielson, very much likely a big time lurker on the DVD VR boards. So, probably felt a little attachment, wanted to do this. And as I mentioned previously, put Adam Priest over big time. Said he is the best independent professional wrestler ever. And he says, look, I'm going to go back there. I'm going to peek through the curtain. I'm going to look at Mad Dog Connolly. I've never seen him wrestle before. I get my opportunity tonight here at an independent wrestling show. So making the case for independent wrestling. So those were unquestionably, in my mind, the best 2 matches of the night. And not to mention the 2 longest. I think the Cybernetico went under 25 minutes, was just a shade under 24. And Mad Dog Connolly and Adam Priest, well, that wasn't even the second longest match of the night. That went 7 minutes, 9 seconds. There's even longer matches on the undercard. Not that much longer, but not longer nonetheless. Let's breeze through these because I don't have many thoughts. I don't think. We'll see as we go along, maybe, because I should never do that. I should never create this expectation where I'm like, oh, we're going to breeze through this. It'll go fast. This is Warren Hayes. I should know myself better than just assuming that everything is just going to be, oh yeah, clickety clack. Let's finish. Let's just like scoot through this all because it's like I'm likely not going to go fast. Probably, even though I don't have many thoughts, I'll probably have a lot to say. Let's go to it. Lee Moriarty successfully retained the Ring of Honor Pure Championship against Matt Mako. Matt Mako, who was previously known as Matt Makowski, and it is not Matt Mako, which you would assume it would be, being that his name is Makowski and not Makowski, but we're going with Mako here. Makes more sense phonetically when you see it written down. Mako makes more sense than Mako. I don't know why he changed, quite frankly. Matt Makowski is a great pro wrestler name. Like, I don't know why would you change? That is a tremendous professional wrestling name. Matt Makowski. That's excellent, right? Anyway, Pure Rules, both guys are losing their rope breaks like within the first 2 minutes in, even the first 4 minutes in. I think they're down to one. I think they're down to one rope break apiece, and that's essentially what it was built around. Then the suspense after that. Okay, both guys have exhausted a lot of their rope breaks. There isn't much wiggle room for error. There's a good little grapple exchange between the two. A couple of big power moves as well from Makowski, Makowski. He does a big backdrop driver, superplex into a Falcon Arrow. Where have I seen that before? Makowski forces Moriarty to use his last rope break as he got him in an arm breaker, but Lee gets him into the Border City stretch shortly thereafter. And Makowski is already out of rope breaks, so he can't do jack. He submits. Solid match, good. I give it 3 1/4. I enjoyed it. A fine little match. A good defense for Moriarty, who I would like to see develop more in the Tonyverse outside of Ring of Honor, because I don't watch Ring of Honor for all the reasons that we're not going to get into right now. Beast Mortos defeated Slim J. This was a lot of fun. This was a fun one. Slim J, of course, doing the, he's the smaller guy. He's the aerial flyer against Beast Mortos, who's there to serve as a base and just throw him around because he's so much bigger and stronger. And so, look, you see exactly how this match is going to go. And that's exactly how it went down. It's, Slim J is very good. He's very good at what he does, and especially in this type of situation. And he's a great flyer. It was just a very smart matchup that was put together here. Mortos, we talk about how big and strong he is, but he's mobile. He can do very dynamic things. It wasn't necessarily needed here. It was a perfect match for this kind of crowd where even if you're not familiar with Mortos, you see these two guys in the ring and you're like, oh shit, this skinny guy's going to get his ass whooped. And that's exactly what happened. And it was a blast, a couple of, in my circles, we've been talking about it a little bit. We don't quite understand why Slim J was let go. What was it, like close to a year now, or about a year ago? We don't know why he was let go, especially after a performance like this. Look, if this was like any kind of opportunity for Tony Khan to see him work again and maybe reconsider, then all the more power to it. I think a guy like Slim J has a lot of value still, and veteran status. Like, he's no slouch. This was really good. I gave it 3.5 stars. This was a lot of fun, and Mortos won with a submission hold. Look at this. He didn't do any, devastatingly destructive power moves. He didn't eviscerate anyone. It was just a submission move by the Beast Mortos, expanding his horizons here. I didn't hate it. I loved it. Crowd was into it too. I liked it. Good stuff. Then we had Josh Woods defeating JD Drake. Josh Woods was accompanied by Filthy Tom Lawler, who was supposed to fight, but Lawler was not cleared to wrestle. He's got some kind of injury. So they filled him in with JD Drake, who was there to be the hoss of the evening. And he was accompanied by his tag team partner, fellow workhorseman, Anthony Henry. I do also believe that commentary mentioned that this was the first time that the workhorsemen had been together in public on TV or whatever, video, you know what I mean, as a team, since both guys started getting injured because they're unfortunately very injury prone. This was fine. I liked it. Good enough match. I think JD Drake is, I think he can be more explosive and exciting than this. I think he put on a bit of weight, and this is not a knock. I'm not saying, I'm not trying to put him down, but I'm surprised at how big he's become. It seems to me he wasn't that big a year ago. And again, I'm in no position to be telling people, they're fat or they should lose weight. I'm just stating something like, oh, it struck me today. And I don't know if this new size that he has, if my theory is correct by any stretch here, I don't know if this new size that he has is hindering his overall mobility and his explosiveness, because he didn't quite feel like it didn't quite feel like he usually wrestles. But then again, Josh Woods did a complete, buffet of the Josh Woods style. So he was very good here. The match was also very short, like under 7 minutes. So, I'm also curbing everything that I'm saying here by just reason and logic, where I'm like, well, how much could we go in here and how much diversity could we have here in the match if we're under 7 minutes and the idea is for Josh Woods to go over? Well, mission accomplished. It was successful. I'm just I don't know. I was kind of surprised here at JD's performance is what I'm saying. Maybe I'm reading too much into it. It's just a time situation, which is absolutely possible as well. 3 stars for this match here. Then we had the team of Arez and Gringo Loco defeating the Coven of the Goat, which is Jaden Newman and Tank. Jaden Newman is a lot of fun, good, wiry, technical wrestler. Tank, I believe, has retired 18 times. It's one of these guys. Professional wrestling retirements live still to this day. I thought this match was fine. I thought this match was just perfectly fine. Gentleman's 3, I guess. I don't know. Tank is, Tank's a deathmatch guy, which is all right. I'm not, and he's also up there in age, and his body is in the shape that it is as well. And I don't mean like the actual shape. I mean physical state, So he's got no mobility. He can't move around. Like at some point he's doing this one thing where he's running from corner to corner, or he has a little sequence where he's running, and after that he is completely gassed. I'm like, oh my God, And Arez looked good. Gringo Loco looked good, but they really didn't have the opponents allowing for a lot of the creativity to come through. Arez does a couple of his crazy, amazing spots. A couple of things are like, holy shit. And he wins by doing his leg trap made in Japan on Newman. Got the win there. Gentleman's 3 on this one. Because I thought, I thought Arez, Loco, and Newman, they all worked well. They did what they had to do. Tank is what it is. But hey, the Coven of the Goat got their heat back after, because they attacked the baby faces after the match. So they got their heat back. I mean, look, it is an action show. So maybe this sets up some kind of angle for action wrestling. But it did come off a little strange. I'm like, why are we doing this? I don't care. What, or is this going to continue at the Action Dean 3 show? This is also possible. Look, I'm not particularly excited at seeing Tank wrestle some more. That's just me. 3 man. Let's move on. 3 stars. And then we had the opener, which was Rhino defeating Manders, or the one call Manders, and this was all right. 2 3/4 stars. I don't know. It's Rhino in 2025. It's all right. It's, you start off the show with a name a lot of people know, a face that a lot of people know. They're like, hey, wasn't he on the WWE? That's fine. It's all right. Nothing spectacular. It's basically Manders doing an extended heel control, portion segment, and then Rhino hits the gore, and we're done. So there you go. That's that. It's the opener, and it's Rhino. What do you want from me? 2 3/4 stars. And that's the action show. That's Action Dean 2. More than just the action show. Why am I struggling with this at the very end? Action Dean 2 by Action Wrestling in collaboration with Ring of Honor. You can watch it for free on the Ring of Honor channel right now. Look, you like pro wrestling? Go ahead. Here are my highlights. The main event and the Cybernetico are a lot of fun. If you have time, go. Like, they're not must-see matches, but they're fun. You won't be bored. If you want to see in the main event, two guys whose stock is incredibly high right now on the independent scene that have a lot of buzz around them both, go check that out. Go take a look at these guys. If you want to see a fun Cybernetico, even if you're not familiar with them, with what they are, what they look like, you have a great example here on this show with a nice buffet of great luchadors of a couple of generations, but no slouches, no one not working hard. Everyone had a good time and a good show overall. Just watch the whole thing, really. There's nothing that I'm not going to not recommend this show. It was good. And just a breeze to watch, a lot of fun to watch. Good job. Can't wait to see Can't wait to see Dean 3, which is going to be happening later this year. So there you go. Action Dean 2. That's the review. And that about does it for another edition of the Mr. Warren Hayes Show this week. Thank you everyone for joining me. Of course, if you haven't done it already, I have to remind you that you should leave a like on this video here on YouTube, or leave a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts, or 5-star rating on Spotify. Of course I have to. So there you go. I hope you enjoyed everything. As a reminder, join the Discord. Join me on Blue Sky at MrWarrenHayes.show. Join me tomorrow, if you're listening to this on Wednesday. Join me tomorrow for the Dynamite review. I probably have 4 hours to review the way things are going. I'm still not sure how to handle this. But we'll figure it out. We'll figure it out together tomorrow. And come and join me also on YouTube. Subscribe over there if you want to join the live streams. Those are a lot of fun. We have some nice casual talks and some more, inflamed, impassioned talks as well sometimes. So come and join us there for the on the live stream and stuff. And that about wraps it up. I think I've covered everything. Yeah, I'll be back next week. How about that? Thank you everyone for watching. Go watch some Randy Orton and get back to me. And I'll see you next time.